Starship's push toward 100-ton lunar deliveries reframes the hardware requirements for routine moon cargo runs. This is SpaceX Daily, episode S67. The target payload figure applies to Starship upper stage configurations intended for lunar surface delivery. Achieving that mass requires multiple orbital refueling steps before translunar injection. Engineers are evaluating tank insulation upgrades that would reduce boil-off during the multi-day transfer window. The 100-ton goal also sets the structural load path for the lunar landing legs and payload bay doors. The statement frames the capability as enabling broader scientific and commercial payloads beyond government missions. Remember, we covered Starship yesterday. Today's target moves that forward by sharpening the refueling and insulation questions still open. The schedule calls for 3 Falcon 9 missions from Vandenberg within the same week. Each flight targets distinct orbital planes to expand coverage for Starlink and other payloads. The compressed cadence tests ground crew turnaround times at the site. Pad teams must complete booster inspections, propellant loading, and payload integration between successive flights. The sequence marks one of the tightest weekly launch windows attempted from the West Coast range in recent years. The launch added another batch of satellites to the constellation from Cape Canaveral. The mission used a Falcon 9 booster on a trajectory optimized for the current orbital plane. Reports tie the timing to ongoing constellation density targets that support direct-to-cell testing. The added satellites increase the total number of operational nodes available for laser-link cross-connects and maritime user terminals. Ground stations recorded initial beacon acquisitions within the first orbit after deployment. The awards cover Starshield hardware and related services for national security missions. Contract scope includes both satellite production and launch services. The value represents one of the larger single-year Starshield commitments disclosed to date. The agreement adds dedicated ground segment terminals and encrypted user equipment for military operators. Delivery milestones are phased across the next 3 fiscal years. The payload set consists of 32 dedicated laboratory modules focused on microgravity pharmaceutical research. The mission profile uses a single Starship flight to place the labs in low Earth orbit. Integration work is scheduled to begin once the 2027 flight test campaign concludes. Each module will carry independent power, thermal control, and data downlink systems sized for continuous operation over multi-year stays. The experiment manifest includes protein crystallization and cell culture studies that require stable microgravity conditions unavailable on shorter duration platforms. xAI is constructing a mini-hard data center in Tennessee that will house 220,000 GB, 300 GPUs. The facility adds to the existing Colossus cluster and is intended to support both training and inference workloads tied to Grok models. Construction timelines align with the broader expansion of high-density racks that will interconnect with SpaceX telemetry and simulation pipelines. Supermicro secured a gigawatt-scale AI data center contract with both SpaceX and xAI for power and rack infrastructure. The deal covers high-density GPU deployments that will link into the broader Musk compute network. Delivery of the first rack rows is expected to begin once substation upgrades at the Tennessee site reach completion. Cursor plans to open its first India office by year-end to handle growing developer demand for its AI coding tools. The expansion follows rapid user growth and precedes the scheduled Origin platform release for automated code reviews. The new location will support local integration work on Grok-powered agent features inside the editor. SPCX closed at $133.29, up 0.2%. Ground crews at Vandenberg posted photos of the rapid booster turnaround between the first 2 missions of the 3-launch stretch. The images showed engine inspections and fairing reinstallation completed inside a single shift. Amateur radio operators tracked the Starlink deployment sequence and confirmed the initial laser link handshakes between new satellites. Signal reports showed successful acquisition on multiple frequencies within the first 90 minutes after release. Payload analysts compared the 100-ton lunar delivery target against current Starship propellant transfer test data and highlighted the number of refueling flights still needed. The discussion centered on docking collar mass penalties and residual propellant margins. One thing worth watching is the suit DC Blocks filed against local authorities over new zoning rules that delay a planned data center project near the Nashville Zoo. The regulations add review steps for power and cooling infrastructure that the company says will push the schedule by months. Resolution depends on whether the court grants an expedited hearing or requires full environmental reassessment. The outcome could set precedent for other high-density compute facilities seeking permits in the same jurisdiction. On the AI front, the Tennessee facility and gigawatt-scale racks tie directly into SpaceX telemetry pipelines, while Cursor's India expansion supports Grok agent features for developers. From an engineering standpoint, the 100-ton lunar delivery target for Starship rests on a straightforward mass budget calculation. Raw propellant and structure mass set a floor. Every additional kilogram of payload must be offset by either more propellant or fewer dry mass components. Current Raptor iterations already deliver the chamber pressure needed to push that floor lower, yet the real constraint is the number of refueling flights required before the upper stage can depart Earth orbit. Each transfer operation adds boil-off losses and docking hardware mass, so the net payload that reaches the lunar surface shrinks unless the transfer efficiency improves. Design choices around the propellant transfer interface therefore matter more than raw thrust figures. A docking collar that minimizes residual propellant and allows rapid disconnect reduces the number of tanker flights needed. That reduction directly lowers the total energy cost of the mission because fewer vehicles must be built, fueled, and launched. The same logic applies to the heat shield tiles on the returning upper stage. Lower mass per tile means more payload can be carried on the outbound leg without exceeding the booster's lift capacity. If the 100-ton figure is achieved, the cost per kilogram delivered to the lunar surface drops toward the raw material cost of the propellant and structure rather than the amortized cost of multiple vehicles. That compression is the same mechanism that made Falcon 9 reuse economical. The difference is that lunar missions have no atmosphere for aerobraking, so every kilogram saved on orbit must be saved on the ground through tighter manufacturing tolerances and lighter avionics. The next visible milestone will be whether a single Starship upper stage can complete the full refueling sequence without exceeding its structural margins. Additional margin can be gained by refining the insulation on the propellant tanks themselves. Multi-layer blankets that cut heat leak by even a few watts per square meter extend the time the tanks can hold cryogenic propellants before venting becomes necessary. Because each extra hour of loiter time removes one tanker flight from the manifest, the insulation improvement multiplies across the entire campaign. The principle scales to the avionics bay. Replacing discrete wiring harnesses with integrated flex circuits trims kilograms that would otherwise require compensatory propellant on every refueling leg. Taken together, these incremental mass reductions determine whether the 100-ton payload remains a headline number or becomes a routine operational capability. The engineering path is clear. Lower every gram that does not contribute to payload or structural integrity, but the execution depends on flight data from the next series of orbital refueling demonstrations. A quick look at the tape shows SPCX at $133.29. Before we go, the next refueling demonstration flight will show whether the insulation and collet changes keep the mass budget intact. That's your SpaceX news for today. If the show saves you time, a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify genuinely helps new listeners find it. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. Thanks for listening. See you tomorrow. One more thing. If you liked today's episode, our sister show, OmniView, is worth a spot in your feed. A balanced daily world news briefing that takes every side seriously. It's one of the NARA Network's daily briefings, all free at naranetwork.com. New to the network? naranetwork.com Start Here picks the right daily briefing for you in about 2 minutes. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.